Hi, and welcome to Storytime with Saturena. Today is day 20 of our 28 days of Black History Facts. Guys, guess what? We've made it to day 20. I hope you've enjoyed all the biographies and stories that I've told you about the Black African Americans in history so far. Today we're going to be talking about how sweet potato pie became an African American, what do you want to call it? I guess a delicacy. That's what we could say. How sweet potato pie became an African American delicacy. I'm going to read to you a little bit about it. And then at the end, I'm actually going to walk you through how to make a sweet potato pie. Well, the way I make it. Okay? Let's get started, friends. As much as sweet potato pie is beloved within the Black community and in the South, it doesn't seem to get much love elsewhere. Our national pie divide is deepest when people choose between pumpkin pie and sweet potato pie on Thanksgiving. And that got me wondering, how did sweet potato pie become a soul food favorite over its chief Thanksgiving rival? It started happening centuries ago, and it didn't follow the path that you might expect. When tracing the history of African American cuisine, it's best to take stock of what was inherited from West Africa, our ancestral homeland. I thought and hoped that sweet potato pie had Western African roots, but the trail begins in Peru, where sweet potatoes originated. As early as the 16th century, Spanish traders shipped sweet potatoes from the Americas across the Atlantic Ocean on two different routes. One headed to West Africa and the other to Western Europe. West Africa cooks first experimented with sweet potatoes as a possible substitute for the other root crops, cassava, plantain, and yams, that they used to make a typical meal of some sort of starch served with a savory sauce or soup or stew, typically made with fish and vegetables. One particular specialty was fufu, in which a root is boiled, mashed, or pounded and shaped into balls. For those who have made sweet potato pie, it doesn't seem to be much of a leap to add eggs, milk, sugar, and spices to make a dessert out of a savory mash. But West African cooks probably never tried, for two reasons. First, the sweet spud was a complete dud to the Western African palate. They didn't like the sweet potato taste and focused primarily on eating the leaves. Second, even if they liked sweet potatoes, West Africans would not naturally think of cooking them for dessert. That was something the Europeans did. Yeah, it was the Europeans. They did in their kitchens, big kitchens and everything. They had all the resources to use to make pies. Well, let's finish reading about this. Wealthy American colonial kitchens eagerly adopted the latest culinary trends out of England, and a big house at plantations in the antebellum South were no exception. Flip through the pages of the iconic Southern cookbooks used in those elite kitchens, the Virginia housewife, the Kentucky housewife, and the Carolina housewife, and you will find strikingly similar recipes for pumpkin pie, sweet potato pie, squash pie, and existing sides of dessert sections. Southern cooks, black and white, turned more often to recipes for sweet potatoes because in the South they were easily grown more than edible pumpkins. Using the same logic, Northern cooks prefer the easy-growing gourds for their pies. Using that sweet potato bounty, making the dessert in the big house was often a task that they gave to the slaves. And it was through their expertise that sweet potato pie entered the Black culture. Despite what was happening in the big house, sweet potato pie took longer to catch on in the plantation slave cabins. In the antebellum South, dessert was not a regular part of a meal pattern that primarily consisted of boiled vegetables, cornbread, and buttermilk. During the week, if there was a dessert, it would be a piece of cornbread with some molasses poured on top of some fruit. In addition, slave cabins rarely had the cooking equipment or appliances necessary to adequately bake a pie. The first sweet potato dessert in the slave cabin was a whole sweet potato roasted in the embers of a dying fire. Because of the glassy look that the outside would get from the caramelization of the vegetable's natural sugars, they were described as being candied. Only with the advent of improved and affordable stoves and increased access to processed ingredients such as white flour and sugar could African Americans cook transition from roasting sweet potatoes to making cakes, cobblers, and pies. Such composed desserts became a part of the special occasion menu for weekends and holidays. After emancipation, the ethnic and regional divides between pumpkin and sweet potato pies were laid bare in the national and regional media. Pumpkin pies were the pride of the North, especially New England, becoming closely associated with the Thanksgiving holiday by the late 1800s. And sweet potato pies were the South's preferred pie, as well as an African American favorite. As millions of African Americans left the South for different parts of the country, they took their love for sweet potato pies with them, resulting in a national profile for a perpetually regional dessert. Sweet potato pie. I wanted to share some pictures of different sweet potatoes with you because there are white sweet potatoes, orange, a yellowish looking sweet potato. So see, they come in different sizes, different shapes. And then I also wanted to share with you, people always say, what's a yam? What's a sweet potato? So I wanted to share with you a picture of exactly what a yam is and what a sweet potato is. So let me read to you. It says a yam is dry, starchy flesh, and it has a dark bark like skin. A sweet potato is moist flesh with a variation in color, slick-like appearance in the skin. So that's the difference between a yam and a sweet potato. Okay? And then I wanted to share with you this picture that I found on the internet. It's a 13-year-old daughter of an African-American sharecropper, and she's planting sweet potatoes. And this is in the Olive Hill of North Carolina. And this was in 1939. She's 13 years old. If you look in her hand, you can see she has a whole bunch of sweet potatoes that she's planting, that she's planting to grow sweet potatoes. Okay, and then I'm going to teach you how to make a sweet potato pie. You might want to try it. We're going to make one of these. All right, so I'm going to pause it for now. I hope you enjoyed that African American fact, and I'll be right back with you.